This sutta is 5.18.180. Once the Exalted One, with a great following of monks, walked a tour among the Kosalans. And as the Exalted One went along the highway, he saw a place where grew a big grove of sal trees. And seeing it there, he moved down from the road and went towards it and made his way among the trees. And at a certain place he smiled. Now the Venerable Ananda thought, what cause now, what reason moved the Exalted One to show a smile? Not for nothing do Tathagata smile. And the Venerable Ananda asked him concerning the matter. Then said the Exalted One, at this place, Ananda, in olden times there was a rich and flourishing city thronged with many people. And by the city Ananda there dwelt the Exalted One, Kassapa, Arahant, fully enlightened. And Gavesin was a lay disciple of the Exalted One, Kassapa, but he kept not the moral precepts. Now because of Gavesin, there were about 500 who testified and were stirred to discipleship, but they kept not the moral precepts. Thought he, I have greatly served these 500 lay disciples, being the first to move and bestir myself. Yet I keep not the moral precepts, nor do these 500 others. This is a leveling of levels, leaving no whit of a more. Come now, I'm for something more. I'll stop here for a while. This Gavesin, he had 500 friends, and he was the first to become a disciple of the Buddha Kassapa, which was the Buddha previous to our Sakyamuni Buddha. And when he became a disciple of the Kassapa Buddha, his 500 friends also became disciples of Kassapa Buddha, but all of them did not keep the precepts. So he said this is a leveling of levels, leaving no whit of a more. That means this is the lowest, lowest, and the stage they are at. So he said, I'm for something more. He should aim for something higher. Now the sutta continues. So Gavesin went up to the 500 and said, know, good sirs, that from today I keep the moral precepts. Then Ananda, those 500 thought to themselves, verily, Master Gavesin has greatly served us, being first to move and bestir himself. And this same Master Gavesin will now keep the moral precepts. Why then not we too? Then went those 500 lay disciples to Gavesin and told him that they too henceforth would keep the moral precepts. Again thought Gavesin, this also is a leveling of levels, leaving no whit of a more. I'm for something more. And he went and told them, saying, no, sirs, from today I follow the celibate's life, the life remote, giving up sex life, common among men. Then thought those others, why not we too? And did likewise. Again thought Gavesin, this is also a leveling of levels, leaving no whit of a more. I'm for something more. And went and told them, saying, no, sirs, from today I am a one-mealer and abstain from night eating, giving up eating at wrong times. Then thought they, why not we too? And did likewise. Now the lay disciple Gavesin considered thus, I have greatly served these 500 lay disciples, being the first to move and bestir myself. I have kept the moral precepts, and now they too have done this. I have followed the life remote, and now they too have done this. I have become a one-mealer, and now they too have done this. This is indeed a leveling of levels, leaving no whit of a more. Come now, I am for something more. And Ananda, the lay disciple Gavesin, went to the Exalted One, Kassapa, Arahant, Sammasambuddha, and having come, said to him, Lord, grant that I may go forth beside the Exalted One. grant me full ordination. And Gavesin, the lay disciple, obtained permission to go forth beside Kassapa, the exalted one, Arahant, Sammasambuddha, and he obtained full ordination. Now Ananda, not long after his ordination, Gavesin the monk, living alone, withdrawn, diligent, ardent, resolved, entered into and abode in that unsurpassed goal of the holy life, here in this very life, realizing it by his own knowledge, that goal for the good of which clansmen's sons rightly go forth from the home to the homeless life. And he declared, destroyed is birth, lived is the holy life, done is the task, there is no more of this to come. Thereafter Ananda, the monk Gavesin, was numbered among the Arahants. Then thought those 500 lay disciples, Master Gavesin has done us a great service. He was the first to move and bestir himself, and now he has had his hair and beard shaved off, donned the yellow robe, and goes forth from the home to the homeless life. Why then not we too? And those 500 lay disciples, Ananda, went and begged the exalted one, Kassapa, saying, Grant, Lord, that we may go forth beside the exalted one. Grant us full ordination. And those 500 obtained permission. Then thought the monk Gavesin, I verily can obtain this unsurpassed bliss of liberation at will, easily and without difficulty. Would that those 500 monks could obtain this bliss in like manner. Ananda, those 500 monks abode alone, withdrawn, zealous, ardent, resolved, and not long after entered and dwelt in that unsurpassed goal of the holy life, here in this very life, realizing it by their own knowledge, that for which clansmen's sons rightly go forth, and declared, destroyed is birth, lived is the holy life, done is the task, there is no more of this to come. Thus verily Ananda, these 500 monks with Gavesin at their head, in striving from higher things to higher, from strength to strength, came to realize a liberation above which there is no higher. Wherefore, Ananda, train yourselves in this way. From higher to higher, from strength to strength, we will strive, and will come to realize the liberation above which there is no higher. Verily thus, Ananda, train yourselves. That's the end of the sutta. This is quite an inspiring sutta, and it shows how good friends help each other in life, pulling each other up along the way. And this Gavesin, he was a very good friend to these 500 people. He was the first to blaze the trail, show them the way. He was the first to become a disciple, then kept the precepts, then kept the 8 precepts, and finally renounced and became an Arahant, and they followed him, and they also walked the good way. So this shows when we have a good friend, a friend who knows the Dhamma, and he can inspire us, that's very good. Then because we are generally quite influenced by our friends, if we join with friends who are not interested in the Dhamma, who walk the evil way, the foolish way, then we will also end up like them. But when we join with good friends, then they help us, and we help each other along the path. That is why in one sutta, Ananda told the Buddha, he said, he thinks that half of the holy life have to do with good friends. And the Buddha said, no, Ananda, the whole of the holy life has to do with good friends. So good friends in the spiritual path is very important. We inspire each other and help each other. In the last part, you note that the 500 monks and also Gavesin, they abode alone, withdrawn, zealous, ardent, resolved, and not long after entered and dwelt in that unsurpassed goal of the holy life. So you see, generally, these Arahants, to obtain the highest state, they lived alone. When you live alone, there's nobody to distract you, to talk to. Then you spend more time in meditation, undisturbed, and then the progress would be much faster. Sometimes, if we don't stay alone, we stay in company, like in a monastery, then it is good to practice aloofness. That means we don't talk too much. Even though we are in the company of other people in a monastery, we try to limit our talk and practice more. The next sutta is 5.19.181. The Buddha said, monks, these 5 are forest gone. What 5? 1 is forest gone out of folly and blindness. 1 out of evil desires and longings. 1 foolish and mind-tossed. 1 at the thought it is praised by the Buddhas and their disciples. And 1 is forest gone just because his wants are little, just for contentment, just for austerity, just for seclusion, just because it is the very thing. Verily, monks, of these 5 who have gone to the forest, he who has gone just because his wants are little, for contentment, for austerity, for seclusion, just because it is the very thing, he of the 5 is topmost, best, foremost, highest, elect. Monks, just as from the cow comes milk, from milk cream, from cream butter, from butter ghee, from ghee the skim of ghee, there reckoned topmost. Even so, monks, of these 5 forests gone, he who has gone just because his wants are little, for contentment, for austerity, for seclusion, and just because it is the very thing, he of the 5 is topmost, best, foremost, highest, elect. So this sutta is talking about people who go and live alone in the forest for various reasons. But the best one is the last one. And because he wants to cultivate himself, his wants are little, he is contented, he wants to practice austerities and seclusion, and that is the best reason. The next sutta is 5.20.191. The Buddha said, monks, these 5 ancient Brahmin things are now seen in dogs, but not in Brahmins. What 5? Monks, in former times, Brahmins approached only a Brahmani, never a non-Brahmani. Now they go to Brahmani and non-Brahmani alike. Monks, today dogs go to dogs only, never to other creatures. This, monks, is the first ancient Brahmin thing now seen in dogs, but not in Brahmins. Monks, in former times, Brahmins approach a Brahmani or Brahmini only in season and never at other times. Now they go to a Brahmani both in and out of season. Monks, today dogs go to dogs only in season, never at other times. This, monks, is the second ancient Brahmin thing now seen in dogs, not in Brahmins. Monks, in former times, Brahmins neither bought nor sold a Brahmani, but consorting, just where affection was mutual, fostered concord. Now they do any of these things. Monks, today dogs neither buy nor sell dogs, but consort just where affection is mutual and foster concord. This, monks, is the third ancient Brahmin thing now seen in dogs, not in Brahmins. Monks, in former times, Brahmins hoarded neither treasure, grain, silver nor gold. Now they do these things. Monks, today dogs hoard neither treasure, grain, silver nor gold. This, monks, is the fourth ancient Brahmin thing now seen in dogs, not in Brahmins. Monks, in former times, Brahmins sought food for the evening meal in the evening, for the morning meal in the morning. Now, after cramming their bellies to the uttermost, they take away the remainder. Monks, today dogs seek food for the evening meal in the evening, for the morning meal in the morning. This, monks, is the fifth ancient Brahmin thing now seen in dogs, not in Brahmins. Verily, monks, these are the 5 ancient Brahmin things. That's the end of the sutta. This is quite an unusual sutta where the Buddha is castigating the Brahmins. He's comparing them to dogs. and saying that dogs are even better than these Brahmins. These Brahmins originally were supposed to be priests, ascetics, and they were supposed to, after their certain years of training, they're supposed to be like a renunciant, where they beg for their food and all that. And if they don't want to continue that life, then if they get married, they only get married to a Brahmani. That means one of the Brahmin caste or so, a female of the Brahmin caste. And they only sleep only when the woman is in season, and just to get a child, not for enjoyment. But now this Buddha is saying, comparing them to dogs. The first one, that in ancient times, Brahmins only approach a Brahmani. Now they approach a Brahmani and a non-Brahmani, other castes also. Whereas dogs only go to dogs to procreate, and they still do. And the second one is that Brahmin only approach a Brahmani during her season, not at other times. Just as, but now they do it anytime they want. Whereas dogs still keep the ancient tradition of going to the beach only in season, not at other times. And then Brahmins formerly neither bought nor sold a Brahmani, but got married just where their affection was mutual. And nowadays they buy and sell Brahmanis, whereas dogs still don't do that. And then in ancient times, Brahmins never hoarded their things, never hoarded treasure, grain, silver or gold, and now they hoard these things, whereas dogs still don't do that. And the last one is Brahmins formerly used to seek for their food in the evening. If they need food in the morning, they'll go and look for it in the morning. If they need it in the evening, they'll look for it in the evening. They never store their food, whereas now they eat as much as they can and then take away the remainder and store it up. Whereas dogs also still don't store their food. So the Buddha is saying that dogs are even better than Brahmins. And the reason you can see, if you study more of the suttas, is that the Brahmins were very critical of the Buddha. They thought themselves as the superior caste, and they looked down on the Buddha and said that they were born from the mouth of Brahma, their god. They were born from the mouth of Brahma, whereas all other castes, the other three castes, were born from the feet of Brahma. And of course, the other castes didn't accept it. Because like the Buddha, he belonged to the warrior caste, the Khattiya or Kshatriya caste, and that was the nobles. And of course, the nobles considered themselves higher than the Brahmins, but the Brahmins considered themselves higher. And so, because they were arch enemies, that's why the Buddha really castigated them in this sutta. And this sutta also shows that the Buddha also has his own peculiar habits, his behavior, and seems to show, if you study the suttas, that the Buddha still has some of these human qualities that carried over from previous life. Whereas this is contrary to what the commentary tries to say. The commentary tries to say that the Buddha is so perfect that he has no faults whatsoever compared to the Arahants. Arahants are supposed to still have faults and peculiarities in their behavior. And this sutta is one of those that shows that the Buddha still scolds. Now the next sutta is 5.20.192. Now Brahmin Dona visited the Exalted One and greeted him, and after exchanging the customary words of greeting, sat down at one side. So seated, Brahmin Dona said to the Exalted One, I have heard it said, Master Gotama, that Master Gotama does not salute aged, venerable Brahmins, well stricken in years, long on life's road, grown old, nor rise up for them, nor offer them a seat. Master Gotama, it is just so. Master Gotama does none of these things to aged, venerable Brahmins. This is not right, Master Gotama. And the Buddha said, do you not profess to be a Brahmin, Dona? And Dona said, if of anyone, Master Gotama, in speaking rightly, it should be said, the Brahmin is well born on both sides, pure in descent as far back as 7 generations, both of mother and father, unchallenged and without reproach in point of birth, studious, carrying the mantras in mind, a past master in the 3 Vedas with the indices and ritual, in phonology too, and fifthly in the legends, an expert in verse and grammar, skilled in reading the marks of a great man, in speculation on the universe. To be sure of me, Master Gotama, in speaking rightly, that thing should be said, for I, Master Gotama, am so born, am so skilled. I'll just stop here for a while. So here, this Brahmin is criticizing the Buddha for not paying respect to old, aged Brahmins. And then instead of answering him directly, the Buddha asked him a question, are you Brahmin? And then he said that he spoke about the 3 marks of a Brahmin. The first one is that a Brahmin, a pure Brahmin, is pure for 7 generations. He's born of pure blood Brahmins on the mother and father side for 7 generations. That's the first mark of a Brahmin. The second one is that he's learned in the Vedas, in the mantras, etc. The third one is he has worldly knowledge. That means he is skilled in the marks of a great man, in speculation about the universe, etc. So he said he has all these 3 marks of a Brahmin. Then the Buddha said, Dona, those Brahmin sages of old, mantra makers, mantra sayers, whose ancient collection of mantra verses, hymns and sayings, Brahmins now ever hymn, ever say, ever word the word, ever have the saying said, namely Ataka, Vamaka, Vamadeva, Vesamita, Yamadagi, Angirasa, Bharadvaja, Vaseta, Kasapa and Bagu. They, these 5 Brahmins, have declared the Brahma-like, Deva-like, the bounded, the breaker of bounds, and fifthly, the Brahmin outcast. Which of them, Dona, are you? And Dona said, we know not of these 5 Brahmins, Master Gotama, yet we know that we are Brahmins. It were well for me if Master Gotama would teach me Dhamma so that I may know of these 5. I'll stop here for a while. Here the Buddha is saying that those Brahmin sages of old, and he named them Ataka, Vamaka, Vamadeva, Vesamita, etc. You see, the Buddha, he knows he has this ability to see the past. So because of his ability, his psychic power, he could name all these Brahmin sages of old. And he says these are mantra makers. Mantra is a kind of words which have no meaning. They are supposed to be derived from the spiritual world, but they have a certain power behind them. So these Brahmins, they keep these mantras very secret, and they will never divulge these secrets to other castes. They only keep it among their caste, and they use these mantras quite often, and sometimes when they wield these mantras, they have certain power. That's why other castes sometimes are afraid of them. So the Buddha is saying these Brahmin sages of old, they have declared there are 5 types of Brahmins. The Brahma-like, the Deva-like, the bounded, the breaker of bounds, and the Brahmin outcast. And he asked Dona, which category do you fall under? And Dona said, he never heard of these 5 Brahmins. So here he's asking the Buddha to explain these 5 classes of Brahmins to him. Then the Buddha said, Then listen, Brahmin, give heed and I will speak. Yes, sir, replied he, and the Exalted One said, and how Dona becomes a Brahmin, Brahma-like. Take the case, Dona, of a Brahmin who is well born on both sides, pure in descent as far back as 7 generations, both of mother and father, unchallenged and without reproach in point of birth. He for 48 years leads the Brahma life of virginity, applying himself to the mantras. Then, completing that course, he seeks the teacher's fee for teaching according to Dhamma, not non-Dhamma. And what there is Dhamma? Dona, never as ploughman, nor trader, nor cowherd, nor bowman, nor raja's man, nor by any craft to get his living, but solely by going about for alms, despising not the beggar's bowl. And he hands over the teacher's fee for teaching, and has his hair and beard shaved off, dons the yellow robe, and goes forth from the home to the homeless life. And thus gone forth, he abides in mind, pervading with goodwill 1/4 of the world, so a second, a third, and a 4th quarter. Then above, below, across, and everywhere, the whole wide world he pervades with thoughts of goodwill, far-reaching, expansive, measureless, without hatred or ill will. He abides in mind, pervading with compassion, with joy, with equanimity, 1/4 of the world, so a second, a third, and a 4th quarter. Then above, below, across, everywhere, the whole wide world he pervades with thoughts of compassion, joy, and equanimity, far-reaching, expansive, measureless, without hatred or ill will. And having made these 4 Brahma abidings become, on the breaking up of the body after death, he arises in the well-faring Brahma world. Thus Dona, a Brahmin, becomes Brahma-like. And how Dona becomes a Brahmin, Deva-like. Take the case, Dona, of a Brahmin of similar birth and conduct. He does not get a living by ploughing and so forth, but by going about for alms. He hands over the teacher's fee for teaching, and seeks a wife according to Dhamma, not non-Dhamma. And what there is Dhamma? Not with one bought or sold, but only with a Brahmani on whom water has been poured. And he goes only to a Brahmani, not to the daughter of a noble, or the merchant class, or the labourer caste, nor to the daughter of an outcast, a hunter, a bamboo worker, a cart maker, or aboriginal. Nor goes he to a woman with child, nor to one giving suck, nor to one not in her season. And why, Dona, goes not a Brahmin to one with child? If he go, the boy or girl will surely be foully born, therefore he goes not. And why goes he not to one giving suck? If he go, the boy or girl will surely be an unclean suckling, therefore he goes not. And wherefore goes he not to one not in her season? If, Dona, a Brahmin go to one in her season, never for him does the Brahmani become a means for lust, for sport, for pleasure. The Brahmani is for the Brahmin just a means to beget offspring. And the Buddha continued. And when in wedlock he has begotten a child, he has his hair and beard shaved off, and goes forth, and being thus gone forth, aloof from sensual desires, he enters and abides in the first, the second, the third, and the 4th jhanas. And having made these 4 jhanas become, on the breaking up of the body after death, he arises in the well-faring heaven world. Thus Dona, a Brahmin, becomes Deva-like. And how Dona becomes a Brahmin bounded? Take the case, Dona, of a Brahmin of similar birth and conduct, who weds in like manner. And when in wedlock he has begotten a child, the fondness for children obsesses him, and he settles on the family estate, and does not go forth from the home to the homeless life. In the bounds of the Brahmins of old he stays, and transgresses them not. And it is said, within bounds he keeps and transgresses not. And therefore the Brahmin is called bounded. Thus Dona, the Brahmin, becomes bounded. And how donor becomes a Brahmin, a breaker of bounds. Take the case, donor, of a Brahmin of similar birth and conduct. He hands over the teacher's fee and seeks a wife either according to Dhamma or non-Dhamma, one bought or sold, or a Brahmani on whom the water pouring ceremony has been performed. He goes to a Brahmani or to the daughter of a noble or of a merchant caste man or of a laborer caste, to the daughter of an outcast or a hunter or a bamboo worker or a cart maker or an aboriginal. He goes to a woman with child, to one giving suck, to one in her season, to one not in her season. And for him the Brahmani becomes just a means for lust, for sport, and for pleasure, or to beget offspring. And he keeps not within the ancient Brahmin bounds, but transgresses them. And it is said, he keeps not within bounds, but transgresses, and therefore he is called a breaker of bounds. Thus donor, the Brahmin becomes a breaker of bounds. And how donor becomes a Brahmin outcast? Take the case, donor, of a Brahmin of similar birth. He for 48 years leads the Brahma life of virginity, applying himself to the mantras. Then completing that course, he seeks the teacher's fee for teaching. He gets his living according to Dhamma or non-Dhamma, as a ploughman, a trader, a cowherd, a bowman, a raja's man, or by some craft, or despising not the beggar's bowl, just by going about for alms. On handing back the teacher's fee, he seeks a wife according to Dhamma or non-Dhamma, one bought or sold, or a Brahmani on whom water has been poured. He goes to a Brahmani or any other woman, one with child, giving suck, and so forth. And she is for him a means for lust, or to beget offspring. He leads a life doing all these things. Then the Brahmins say thus of him, how is it that an honorable Brahmin leads this sort of life? And to this he replies, just as fire burns clean things or unclean, and not by that is the fire defiled. Even so, good sirs, if a Brahmin lead a life doing all these things, not by doing that is a Brahmin defiled. And it is said, he leads a life doing all these things, and therefore he is called a Brahmin outcast. Thus, donor, a Brahmin becomes a Brahmin outcast. Verily, donor, those Brahmin sages of old, mantra makers, mantra sayers, whose ancient collection of mantra verses, hymns and sayings, Brahmins now still hymn, say word each word, and have the saying said, namely Ataka and the rest. These 5 Brahmins have declared, the Brahma-like, the Deva-like, the bounded, the breaker of bounds, and fifthly, the Brahmin outcast. Which of them, donor, are you? And Donor said, if such there are, Master Gotama, we at least do not fulfill the ways of the Brahmin outcast. But it is marvelous what you say, Master Gotama. Let Master Gotama take me as a lay disciple, gone to his refuge, henceforth as long as life lasts. That's the end of the sutta. This is one of the suttas where you can see the Buddha, with his vast knowledge, he can teach a Brahmin, even the Brahmin tradition that they don't know of. And here he's describing the 5 types of Brahmins. You notice all of them, for the first 48 years of their life, they lead a life of virginity, and then they learn the mantras, and after that they start teaching. And then if they follow their tradition, then they are supposed to only beg for their food, not to take up a trade. And the first 3 types are still acceptable to them. That means the first one, after 48 years of learning, then he renounces, becomes a renunciant and practices the Brahma abidings, Brahma viharas, which brings him to rebirth in the Brahma world. The second one, he seeks a wife, but only a Brahmin on whom water has been poured. That means, I suppose, means that it has been given to him, because the ceremony of pouring water, I think, implies that giving. So he doesn't go to any other woman of any other caste, only to a Brahmani. And once he has a child with this Brahmani, then he shaves off his hair and goes forth and attains the jhanas, so that after that he's reborn in the heaven world. That's the second class. The third one, after 48 years of learning, then he gets married also to a Brahmin, a Brahmani. And after that, after he has a child, instead of renouncing, he is attached to the child, and he stays in the home. He doesn't renounce. Still, that is acceptable. But the last two are not acceptable, because the last two, they might marry a Brahmani, or they might not marry a Brahmani. Once they marry out of their caste, that is not acceptable. And also, because of the other conditions mentioned. So this sutta is interesting because it gives us an insight into the life of a Brahmin during those times. Because nowadays you hardly see this happen. Nowadays you don't see Brahmins who are virgins for 48 years of their life learning all the mantras. They have kind of lost their tradition.